there, Mesa Nation, and a very warm welcome to all of those joining us today, especially MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred, who watches our show quite a bit and seeks diplomatic advice from us. Today we'll be delivering to you everything you need to know about everything there is to know about baseball. My name is Aaron Witten.
And I'm Ryan Donahoe.
And we're going to be talking about how things are starting to get ramped up in the baseball world as players are starting to report for spring training. Fans are starting to purchase regular season tickets, and MLB fantasy drafts are being scheduled. Today, though, we'll be hitting on all four of the major bases, with first base being an off-season update, second base being the commencement of spring training, third base being our new segment featuring mailbag questions, and the home run, our Outrage and Rampage special. So, let's hit it off.
Okay, so as Aaron so eloquently said, first base is our off-season update, starting with Chris Carter, who signed with the New York Yankees to split first base duties with Greg Bird and Matt Holliday. A little surprising there. Carter, who was non-tendered earlier in the offseason, would have received an arbitration salary about $8 million, so a good amount of money. But instead, he signed with the Yankees for a one-year deal, and for $3.5 million, took less money, but maybe he's hoping to get some more value out of that. He was tied with Nolan Arenado last year for the league lead in home runs with 41, very impressive, and will bring undeniable power to the Yankees lineup. But on the flip side, as we've talked about, Carter did strike out a league-high 206 times and was only hitting 222. So you get 41 home runs out of this guy. I don't know where you want to put him in the lineup because the majority of the time he's going to strike out or ground out or fly out. But I'm trying to cover all the outs here. But I don't know. I think it is a good signing, and I think Matt Holliday should be the number one, in my opinion. I think Matt Holliday's a great hitter, even though he's getting a little older. But what do you think? Do you think Chris Carter will fit in with the Yankees?
Well, this guy is undeniably he's a big guy, big slab of meat who is going to bring some big power to the Yankees. I mean, most of their lineup is speed or contact oriented. You've got Jacoby Ellsbury, who's starting to fade. He signed that huge contract with the Yankees a few offseasons ago. Brett Gardner. You've got Headley over at third base. A lot of the lineup doesn't have power, so I thought this was a good move on GM Brian Cashman's part. Yeah. Like you said, though, he strikes out a lot, so that's not going to help the Yankees if he's not getting on base.
No, yeah, exactly. And a lot is an understatement. I am kind of sad to see him go away. I know he's 2 years removed from the Astros, but I did like him in that Astros lineup when they were all just massive guys with him, Carlos Correa, the first baseman whose name's escaping me, but they were huge. And I remember I saw him in spring training, and they were massive, so I miss the. I think they had a good lineup with slabs of meat there, as you said. But going in, the next guy, Jason Hamill, whose $12 million option was declined by the Cubs. But he then agreed with the Kansas City Royals on a $16 million deal. Hammond was 15-10 last year, provided 166 innings, 3.8 ERA, as obviously the Cubs went on to win the World Series. So a very good year for him. He'll go into that rotation with Enderson Volquez, Danny Duffy, Ian Kennedy, and Jason Vargas. So he really beefed that up there with his year last year, and I think that they can be one of the top pitching rotations in the league, honestly. What do you think?
Yeah, the Royals they're always usually pretty sneaky good. They have a lot of really good guys, as you mentioned. Danny Duffy recently signed an extension this offseason. He's a left-hander. He's got a really good fastball, curveball mix. Their rotation has pretty good upside, but they're going to have to go alongside with the Detroit Tigers. You've got the Minnesota Twins, who can be sneaky good, and then, of course, you've got the AL pennant-winning Cleveland Indians. But overall, it's a pretty good signing. Hamill, I thought, as we've talked about before on the show, outpitched his stats last season, but overall, I think you could agree with me. You're probably getting a good 4 or 5 starter who's going to provide innings. He usually doesn't get hurt. So overall, I thought it was a pretty good signing. And just recently, they also signed Travis Floyd.
Mm-hmm. So they've got depth there too. Another thing that's interesting, I think they've got a mix of players that some they want to get back to what they used to be, maybe, and Ian Kennedy, who was obviously very dominant a few years ago, and others they'd like to maintain their steady progression that Hamill has had over the years. But going in, next is Mike Napoli, another signee. He agreed to a 1-year, $8.5 million deal to return to the Texas Rangers. The deal also includes a club option for 2018. He was a strong right-hander, posted a .239 average with a career high in 34 home runs. And because they did lose Mitch Moreland and Carlos Beltran, I think Napoli will be a good addition. He'll slot probably right into that DH first base a position that we see so often in the American League. Where do you see him playing the majority of his starts?
Yeah, probably. You know what? DH probably, because they have Jurickson Profar, who
Yeah.
keeps moving around the diamond.
Yeah.
Came up as a second baseman. He's played third, short, second. Now they're going to put him at first. I don't know. I liked him more as a middle infielder because I think he got a lot more value there. But the bat profiles anywhere on the diamond. But as far as Napoli, he's probably going to slot into DH. As you said, they lost Carlos Beltran. He has really good bat. He's getting up there in age, but they have a pretty good lineup. They have Adrian Beltre, Ronan Odor, Nomar Mazzara. So they have a lot of really good pieces that could go along with Napoli.
Yeah, and as we like to talk about on the show, a good beard can never be underestimated. So, yeah, I think he'll improve the facial hair of that club.
Yes.
And next, the Atlanta Braves acquired Brandon Phillips, the longtime Cincinnati Red, multiple Gold Glove winner for the minor league pitchers, Andrew McKirian, I'm not sure if I got that right, and Carlos Portundo. Phillips will slot in at second base in the rebuilding Braves franchise. We'll see if maybe they can get a few more wins than they were able to muster up last year. The Reds will see Dilson Herrera and Jose Peraza split most of the time up in the middle infield. Neither of those players received in the deal that the Reds received are considered prospects. McKiernan is 27 and Portundo is 29, so a bit older to be minor league players. But Phillips will still be making $14 million with the Braves this year. Obviously, I think the Braves have a history of great defensive middle infielders with, that guy, the shortstop who's now on the Angels.
Andrelton Simmons?
Yeah, Andrelton Simmons, sorry, skip me there. And now Brandon Phillips, so I think they can definitely get a few more gold gloves at that position if he can continue his great defense that he's had over the years.
Yeah, for the Braves, I thought this trade was more for because the team is so young and they shedded a lot of salary in the past couple of years. They added Matt Kemp last offseason, which was actually a surprising move.
Yeah.
But acquiring Brandon Phillips, I thought, was more of a move so that the team could acquire some clubhouse presence. The guy can really show the players, work ethic. This is how a winning ball club is built. So I thought overall the trade was pretty good. Now, from the Reds' perspective, it pretty much was just shedding salary.
Yeah.
They didn't really receive anything in return, like you said.
Yeah. And it's also going to be interesting seeing how Phillips can work with their their shortstop prospect and Dansby Swanson, the number 1 overall pick a couple years ago. So that'll be good to see their connection up the middle.
All right, so up next, we have second base, and we'll be giving you the pitchers and catchers report. So spring training, as you probably know, Ryan, because you've been to quite a few spring training games, is right around the corner.
Yep.
Pitchers and catchers for all 30 Major League Baseball teams are going to be reporting sometime between the 12th of February and the 15th, while on the other side of things, for position players, they're going to be reporting somewhere between the 16th and the 20th. Question for you. Do you think that they should keep spring training like how players report, the date that they report on, should it be moved back, or do you think it's fine where it's at right now?
I think it's fine where it's at. They need as much practice as they can get. But it is a little different now. I think maybe back in the olden days when people used to report for spring training, it was the first time they'd worked out since the season ended. Now I think these guys are grinding it out all off season. Right around Christmas they start working out again. So it is a little bit different, but I still like where it's at, and plus I like that I'm able to go there and get as many games in as I can when I can.
Yeah, to your point, rather than it being a April to September sport, it's more of a 12-month sport just because so many of the guys work out.
Yeah, exactly.
And they need to.
Yeah.
So we have our 2 leagues, the Grapefruit, and then we have the other one that's out in Arizona. It's escaping me right now.
Yeah, it's escaping me too, so we're just not going to give it to you.
Yeah. But I saw on some social media from MLB.com that for the Red Sox at least, players like Pablo Sandoval, Jackie Bradley, new team ace Chris Sale have reported. I think it's good that Pablo Sandoval has reported, considering when he signed that huge deal with the Red Sox, all we heard about was him going out and eating steak and beef and all this stuff.
Yeah,
and he really, he came to spring training that first year a tad bit overweight,
Yeah.
which didn't look good to a lot of Boston fans, sports media and all that stuff. I don't know. What do you think, Ryan?
Well, for Pablo Sandoval, I think a lot of that weight has caused some issues in his health. Obviously, he hasn't been able to stay on the field. It's tough on your knees when you're running around with a few hundred pounds on them. So, I don't know. I think it's good for those guys to get there as early as possible, especially Chris Sale, like you said, joining a new team. It's good to get used to the coaching staff, used to the players, and adjust to your new team.
That and out of thin air last year, the Red Sox reported he had a mystery shoulder injury, and they put him on the 60-day DL. So I think the weight could have attributed to that.
Yeah, and his production was subpar. But yeah, as you know, as a Boston fan, we don't need to talk much more about it.
All right, so we'll move on to our next point, third base. This is a new segment that we're trying out, and it's our mailbag segment. So, Ryan, I'm going to ask you the first question, which is a bit interesting. So, would you, as GM for the Nationals, do a Victor Robles for David Robertson trade? Why or why not?
I would never do a Victor Robles for David Robertson trade. I have heard this question being posed around a few of the rumor mills. It is very interesting to me as Victor Robles is one of the top prospects in all the majors, especially for the outfield position. He's a young guy. He may only be about 19 now, but he's supposed to be a five-tool player for sure, no doubt about it. David Robertson is good, but it's David Robertson. And they definitely do need an improved bullpen, but I think that there is a lot of potential there with Victor Robles, and I would not give him up for much more than elite closer in my eyes, honestly. So no to David Robertson.
All right.
Sorry.
Those are the famous words of now Nationals GM Ryan Donahoe, folks.
Yeah, I know you're watching, David, so sorry, but I wouldn't take you.
All right, so our second question for you is a little bit different. So where does Matt Wieters, catcher on the open market right now, eventually end up in your opinion?
Personally, I'm not totally sure because obviously his market has diminished a lot. He's been out there for a long time. I think I saw a few things you disagree with me on. I think the Rays would be an interesting fit for him. While they do have Wilson Ramos, you never know how it's going to be with his knee injury. Maybe they'll try and convert Wieters, get him at a good deal. Maybe he'll play some first base. You never know. The Rays, I think they're trying out a few more things to hopefully climb the ladder in that tough AL East. Another place I could see him maybe is the Angels. I've heard a lot of talk about the Angels. He'd be good. I think he really could improve on his past couple seasons anywhere he goes. I've always liked him. I think it's a shame that he's been injured so much and that his production has really declined. And I hope that he finds a place and I hope that he produces. So next up are your questions. Mailbag questions for Aaron. What are your thoughts on the knuckleball potential of all-star closer and turned slow-pitch starter Brian Wilson?
All right, so as many of you might not know, I know you know, Ryan, Wilson was an all-star closer for the San Francisco Giants back in the time when Tim Lincecum was actually good and he was throwing 95-plus miles per hour. Yeah. The interesting part is Wilson's 34 years old, so he's a bit up there on the ladder, as you would probably say. He's never made a major league start in his career, and he only made 6 minor league starts. Mm-hmm. So durability-wise, I don't know if he's going to be able to provide innings, but the knuckleball potential is a bit interesting.
Yeah, and you can never get too many Blackbeards on your rotation.
Exactly.
Next question, what are the odds that the Diamondbacks trade ace starter Zach Greinke by the trade deadline?
Extremely not likely just because of his contract. He signed a 6-year, $206.5 million contract, which was outrageous. I think he had the highest average annual value for a pitcher ever in the history of the sport, so that was a bit interesting. Mm-hmm. He had a really bad year last year. He only threw about 160 innings. He put up a 4.37 ERA, which isn't good, but astonishingly enough, he was still 1% better than league average. He's only 2 years removed from having a 1.66 ERA with the Dodgers. So does he still have frontline potential? Yes, but because of the contract, I don't see them trading him.
Yeah, that's a lot of money for 1%. But next is our now famous Outrage and Rampage segment. I'll start it off. This segment for me is not as much of a rampage as it is an annoyance. The Nationals are still without a closing pitcher, and I think that they definitely had some opportunities to sign players. Like they had Mark Melancon, who pitched for them last year, had a great last half of the year. The Giants signed him for $62 million. Kenley Jansen was out there for a while. The Dodgers signed him for $80 million, and then the flame-throwing Aroldis Chapman was also signed to the New York Yankees for $86 million. While I understand that those are all very high price tags, I just thought that maybe you could get some, purchasing power up in there, and maybe they could get somebody. But now they're kind of stuck in between with Coda Glover, maybe. Blake Trinan and Sean Kelly are their options. I hope that maybe they can find somebody or someone will come out of their system that maybe will do something. But right now, I don't think that closing position is a strength of the Nationals.
All right. And then my outraged and rampaged for me is Cincinnati Reds pitcher Homer Bailey. Homer, we're talking to you right now.
Yeah.
So Homer keeps re-injuring himself. Recently, he underwent surgery to remove bone spurs from his pitching elbow. His injury history consists of, in 2014, his season was shortened by arm fatigue. 2015, he underwent Tommy John surgery, and then most recently in 2016, he was experiencing elbow pain, and he had the bone spurs removed. He signed a 6-year, $105 million contract with the Reds in 2014, a season removed from his second best season, in which he was 8% better than league average. Considering that his peak season, he was only better than 12% of the league, I feel like that the contract was horrible by the Cincinnati Reds, so I'm also talking to you, Cincinnati. But overall, Brian, come on, or Homer rather, get out on the field. Yeah, he's not Brian Wilson. Yeah. Homer Bailey, get out on the field and pitch for your team.
Yeah, you gotta stop getting injured, man. Like, what's that about? It's his fault. I'm totally on your side. I'm totally on your side. All right, but that wraps it up for today. Our fun fact for our home run is that former Pittsburgh Pirates pitcher Doc Ellis, as some of you may know, threw his first no-hitter on June 12th, 1970, and he actually, it says that he was under the influence of LSD while throwing that no-hitter. That may have accounted for the 8 walks that he threw. Maybe he was had his directions a little off, but hey, he was able to get everybody out without allowing a hit, so good for you, Doc.
Magician, right?
Yeah, but we do not condone those actions. But that is all. That is it for us today. I'm Brian Donahoe.
And I'm Aaron Witten.
So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.